Hi everyone, you have tuned into our Wednesday Business and Tech Talks. We're going through crucial conversations. We're in Chapter 8. I'm your host, that girl, Janet Karasoa. At any point in time you're consuming this content, I can genuinely hope you're doing well. And as always, I apologize in advance if I waste your time. So, we are again in crucial conversations doing this wonderful book series. We are in Chapter 8, Explore Others' Path. How to listen when others blow up or clam up. And this is again for Wednesday Business Tech Talk. So the three major talking points: how to listen, introduction. Number 2 is the acronym AMP, AMPP, ask, mirror, paraphrase, and prime. And then number 3 is remember your ABCs, which is to agree, build, and compare. So let's go ahead and jump straight into segment 1. And I apologize if the wind is picking up on the mic. I'll do my best to talk as loudly and clearly as possible. The podcast will be available as well as the blog notes too, which I'll put the link in the video. So let's just get straight into it. Alright, so segment 1, how to listen when others blow up or clam up. So this is just an introduction of what we can use or tools we can use to listen. So initially it says, we cannot force someone to dialogue, but we have the opportunity to make it safer for someone to communicate. And so usually reasons why people opt for silence or violence is because they are genuinely fearful of being vulnerable, and then they're led to believe that the conversation will lead to bad things. So I don't know, exposure, or they're uncomfortable about something, or they just don't know what feelings are going on, but something's bad going to happen. They're convinced. So they either go to silence or violence. So restoring safety in order to get the relationship back on track will require several steps. And then there's a reference from chapter 5, which is called Make It Safe. So what you need to do first is step out of the conversation and restore it. So if you offend someone, apologize when appropriate. When someone misunderstands you, you use a contrasting technique, which is your do and don't statements. Like, I do intend for this, I didn't intend for that. So you need to make that clear. And it's not the same as an apology. It's just pretty much saying, hey, you misunderstood. Let me bring clarity to the situation by contrasting. But when you do offend, be sure to apologize and be sure to be sincere about it. Okay, so continue with, you also need to find your mutual purpose, and with also a new skill, which is called exploring the other person's path. And that's letting others know that it's okay to share their path of action with their facts and their stories. You want them to have the understanding and belief that you do care about what they have to say. So start with heart, which is, what do I want for myself? What do I want from this person? What do I want from the relationship and the conversation? So you go back to the heart of the issue. You need to be sincere. All of these techniques are only going to be really useful and helpful if you have a sincere heart and wanting to make this work. Be curious and stay curious, because when you're entering a crucial conversation, especially when you're trying to be patient to hear other people, your adrenaline and emotions can easily get off kilter. So stay curious and be patient. So when you're sincere, then that's when you invite the person in to talk and share. And then be curious rather than furious, which is a great little memory tool. We are so quick to jump to our emotions and get angry. And a healthier response, instead of being angry, is just be curious. Like, figure out, why is this person thinking this, or why does this person feel this way? So, and also, being curious will help you getting to the source of the fear and discomfort you're investigating. So turn off the adrenaline and look for chances to be curious, and stay that way. When people share their feelings, be prepared that you may want to share your 3 clever stories from chapter 7, which is the victim, villain, or helpless. So when you are the victim, you're like, oh my goodness, this person's so evil, and like, they're going to do mean things to me, and I can't do anything, I'm innocent completely. The villain is, they're the ones causing the problems. They're the ones that's the problem exclusively. They're evil, they're out to get me. And then the helpless stories, I can't do anything about my circumstances, so I might as well just give up and give in. And yeah, we need to stop with those stories and focus on what the actual conversation is. So in order to understand another person, we tend to assign negative emotions. We need to stop. So avoid overreacting and give the brain a problem to focus on by asking. So the question is, why would a reasonable person say this? instead of having the trigger happy response of anger. So you got to help the person retrace their path to action until it makes sense. And if you don't know what path of action is, other notes are going to be put in here for reference, but essentially here for the audio, it's your understanding of an event. It's what you tell yourself, the story you tell yourself to understand or make sense of what's going on or what you heard. And then you have the emotions and feelings. You have to recognize that. And then these feelings tell you how to act. And you need to stay in tune with that. That's your path of action. What has led you to actually behave a certain way based on the information you're told? So again, be patient. Others acting on their feelings, they're going through the silence or violence. So they're feeling a lot of adrenaline. And on page 145 is reference saying, once chemicals that are fueled, our emotions are released, they hang around in the bloodstream for a time. In some cases, long after the thoughts have changed. So a lot of times we're talking to people and they're in survival mode. Hormones are telling them to act a certain way or think a certain way, and we need to be patient as they're going through this. It's a literal chemical response happening. So, and also when you're being patient, that's the opportunity to encourage for them to share their path. And we explained that's their understanding of what's going on. So maintaining your curiosity, this approach may be difficult because we're entering the conversation at the end of the other person's path, when their feelings are telling them how to act with either silence or violence. So we have to be very, very careful. It's kind of like going into, the book makes the example of you're trying to tune into a mystery show. You missed the first half hour of it, so you're watching the show, you're trying to pick up on clues on what's going on, and you've missed all the original references. So you're behind picking up the pieces, trying to figure it out. And that's exactly what it is, trying to talk to a person who's already in their feelings and emotions. So every sentence has a history. So be careful not to become defensive and just breaking the cycle. So by stepping out and encouraging them to move away from feelings towards the root cause. And then together you trace the steps. And this helps the person. It curbs our reactions, and it returns to a place where we can have the feelings can get resolved. So when is it appropriate to do this? It says our job is to invite them to share feelings with cues they've been given that express they have more to share. So you need to really pay attention. This is also a crucial point. I put an asterisk here. If you don't get to the source of their feelings, then you end up suffering the effects. So how do we do this? It must be sincere in the face of hostility, fear, or abuse. Potentially. We don't want physical violence. That's a different thing. We're talking about a verbal abuse, but this is where it's difficult. It kind of brings a little bit of psychology into it. Be very, very mindful and take it very, very attentively and cautiously. But exactly, you could be faced with that. But this requires listening in a way that it is safe for others and for them to believe when they share they won't be offended or they won't be punished for speaking. So we're just focusing on conversation, not the consequences of what the person's done or hasn't done. This is the opportunity for dialogue. This is the point. That's the goal, is to dialogue. So you want the person to be able to tell you what they need to tell you. You have to make it safe for them to trust you. So that's going to wrap it up for the first segment. Again, it is how to talk or how to listen when others blow up or they clam up and they don't want to talk. So let's head on to segment 2. Alright, hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I know the wind is starting to pick up over here on my end, but doing my best to keep everything together for y'all. Okay, sorry about that. Keeping everything together. I got papers flying. Alright, so with segment 2, we have a new acronym, and it's AMP. Power listening tools to use when others turn to silence or violence. So AMP is AMPP, stands for ask, mirror, paraphrase, prime. So ask, invite them to express. On page 140, I'd like to hear your concern. Please let me know if you see it differently. Okay, so you gotta ask. Very, very important. So mirror, to confirm feelings, to help open up, to build safety. Take a portion of their path to action and their actual actions, what they're doing, hints about their emotions, and start when their tone of voice and gestures don't match what they're saying. So someone could say, oh yeah, I'm fine, and then like they're looking sad or rolling their eyes or they're kicking at the ground, but they're saying that they're fine, and you know that they're not. So on page 150, it's quoted saying, really? Well, from the way you're saying that, it doesn't sound like you are. And then we need to explain while the person may say one thing, his tone, etc., is saying something else. And we show respect and concern for them when we ask these questions. And the most important element is your tone of voice. So I'm going to add a little disclaimer here, not in the book. This is just me talking off the cuff. It is pretty much when you have interpersonal communications in person versus online. I've made references how I debate and discuss things online versus in person are two different things, because if I'm typing something, you can get the tone, and I don't expect you to always get the tone. You can try and get all the words in there in the right place and the right punctuation marks, whatever, to create the desired effect, but it doesn't always come over or across perfectly. So these skills are more specifically designed for face-to-face conversing. It's the ideal, it's best, or at least video call, so you can get all the appropriate nonverbal cues and context. So disclaimer, tone is so important. It's the most important element. On 150 it says, we create safety when our tone of voice says we're okay with them feeling the way that they're feeling. So they may conclude that they can confidently talk when you relate to them that it's okay for them to speak their mind. So as we describe what we see when we're talking to them, we do so calmly. If we act upset, we confirm their suspicion that they need to remain silent. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We don't want them to go to silence. We want them to talk. You look nervous about confronting me. Are you sure you're willing to? You need to encourage them and kind of walk them through the process. So next in the acronym of AMP is the first P, which is paraphrase. And that's to acknowledge their story. Asking and mirroring may help get their story out. So the first two, asking and mirroring, may help to get the story out, but paraphrasing or summing up what the person said may build additional safety. And we're not just going to parrot what they said back to back or word for word. You have to put it in your own words and kind of paraphrase, like, let me see if I got this right, and then you continue. So the key to this, again, is to remain calm. The goal is to make it safe, not to act horrified. And also, very important, stay focused on figuring out their path to action. Stay curious, and then rephrase it in a way that suggests that you are trying to understand. This is the goal here, that you are trying to understand, and they need to understand that you are trying to understand. Very, very crucial to avoid pushing too hard, because you might get to the point where the other person feels like you're only trying to get out information that you want to conclude, and that you don't really care about the person. You just want the information so you can jump to your conclusions, and we don't want to push them to the point. So as a response, to say, back off. Pushing too hard violates the mutual respect or mutual purpose, and you're kind of just being counterproductive at that point. So on 151, the suggestion is ask. So ask what he or she wants to see happen. And then that engages the brain in a way that moves to problem solving. Okay, so we're trying to avoid attack, and we don't want the person to go into silence of avoidance. So this helps when we ask the person what he or she wants to see happen. It may reveal the cause of what the problem of the cause is. Next is going to be prime. Okay, so we use the word paraphrase. Now we're on to prime. Prime is when you're getting absolutely nowhere and you believe that the other person still has something to say or to share, and they might be able to do so with more of your effort. So to prime is to offer your best guess at what the person is thinking or feeling. You're pouring meaning into the pool of meaning first before another person might be willing to do so. And on page 153, they have an example of a board meeting that went wrong. And the example that the boss said, I can see you're upset. So this is him using the prime technique. Are you thinking that the only reason we're doing this is to make more money? So we're kind of guessing, but ultimately you only use prime if nothing else is working. Priming is an act of good faith in hopes that others will share their meaning. And then another disclaimer that they put in there, if others are wrong, this is very, very important. You may know for a fact that the other person's wrong, their information is limited. You're a parent trying to talk to your child about how they're dressing or the people that they're dating. You know that they're wrong. But when you're in this dialogue, it's so important that they know, and that you know this, the understanding, coming to a place of understanding is not the same as agreement. You can say, I understand where you're coming from. You don't have to agree with them, but you want them to know that you're open to talking. That's what we need to focusing on. So again, that was for our second segment, and it's the acronym AMP, which is to ask the person, mirror what they're saying, kind of like get to an understanding of, like, based on your tone or based on how you're saying this is what I'm getting from it. Let them know. Paraphrase what they're saying, and then the prime is when you're kind of putting a little bit of your meaning into what they might be trying to say to get them to open up more. Okay, very, very good. I really like this chapter a lot. It's one of my favorites. Actually, I would think this entire book is really one of my favorites, but okay. Sorry. Okay. Let's go on. Okay, so now segment 3 is going to kind of wrap everything up. Thankfully, it was a little bit of a short, comprehensive chapter. I really, again, enjoyed it. Very, very succinct and straightforward. So segment 3 is about the ABCs, which is to agree, build, and compare. When it's your turn to talk, but there's a disagreement, start in an area of agreement and focus on points you do agree on. Don't waste your time arguing on small details. Next is letter B for build. We are trained to look for errors. In school, we learn quickly that it's better to be right in first. That's kind of how we're trained. Raise your hand, you get the answer right, everyone's happy, right? So page 157. When you do find a minor difference, you turn the snack into a meal. Instead of remaining in a healthy dialogue, you end up in a violent agreement. So we got to be very, very careful when we there's times when we do agree on things, but we're still arguing. And it's like, what are we arguing for? And it's because we're so focused on the small little details of correcting everyone, where it's like we're losing sight of the bigger discussion here. So they say to look for points on agreement rather than, oh, you're wrong, or you forgot to mention. So with the building aspect, it's working on the agreement and then building on from there. So instead of saying, you're wrong and you left this out and you left this out, you say, absolutely. You find the things that you agree with. In addition, I noticed, instead of saying, well, you left this out, it's like, oh, I noticed. So that's the differences. And then letter C is compare. So rather than suggest a person is wrong, offer we differ. Suggest with a candid, I think I'm seeing things differently. Let me discuss, or let me explain how. And you compare and contrast. When it's your time to finally talk, to get to your point. If the person's been silent, you've been able to get them to talk a little bit more. Now it's your turn. So now you share state my path, again from chapter 7, which is share your story, share your facts, tell your story, ask, talk tentatively, and then encourage dialogue. So we work together, we encourage, we explain, and then we compare to wrap everything up. Again, I said it's pretty very short and straight to the point, very succinct, great acronyms. And believe it or not, that'll conclude chapter 8, which is, again, the 3 major talking points. Okay. All right, let me go ahead. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so again, to conclude really fast, the 3 major talking points was, again, how to listen, using the AMP acronym, which is to ask, mirror, paraphrase, prime, and then the 3rd segment was remembering your ABCs, which is to agree, build, and compare. And the only way any of these are going to work if you have a sincere heart with the intent of wanting to open up the dialogue and have a conversation. So very, very crucial. As always, though, at any point in time you're consuming this content, I can only hope you're doing well. I've been your host, that girl, Janet Kirisoa. Thank you so much for joining us for our Wednesday Business and Tech Talks, going through the book Crucial Conversations. And with that, I will leave you. It is always God's peace.